Thank you, everybody, for coming in. This is wonderful to see you. So this meeting is being recorded. We will send a link to everybody who registered, and then later on, we will post it to our website. So you can share it with your friends and your community. I would ask you to remain muted. You can use the chat button if you have questions or technical issues. My name is Astrid Fellows. I'm very excited to have this soul care program today with Rosemerry Wahtola Trommer, who I will introduce in a little bit. But first, I want to give you a little bit of history about volunteer hospice. We are very unique in the world. We are like a unicorn. We do hospice care, palliative care, and several other programs, and we do not bill Medicare or any private insurance company or the patients. We never bill anyone, and we intend to continue like this. Our services are entirely free. We depend on donations and a few grants. This soul care program is one of the programs that we have established to sort of demystify death and dying and end of life. We really want to shift that narrative from death-phobic culture to a culture, society where we make death a part of our life, because it is. And the truth is, we are all going to die. Today, we're going to talk about poetry. We're going to listen to some poems. The talk is titled Turning Toward Our Sorrow, How Poetry Can Help Us Explore Our Broken, Open Hearts. Broken, open hearts. It makes me think of Leonard Cohen, who writes in his song anthem, "Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. That's how the light gets in." It also reminds me of the Japanese art of repairing pottery with gold or silver, and it's called kintsugi. And in the process, that broken pottery becomes more beautiful. So grief is part of, the cracks in our life. And grief can touch every part of our lives as we lose a family member, a loved one. Nothing can stay the same. Loss will change us. But loss also becomes a gateway. It cracks open our broken hearts where we navigate the paradox of grief and love. So how can we show up for all this grief and grace, for the ache and the devotion, for the fear and the wonder? And this is what we're going to explore with Rosemerry today. She will share poems from her books, The Unfolding and All the Honey. She's offering us writing invitations, and she's also will lead conversation about the process, how a creative writing practice can help us meet that tender threshold space that we inhabit during our grief. After the program, you will get a recording of this program, of course, the poems shared, and Rosemary's writing prompts. So in this way, you will have the space to show up to the page in your own time with no pressure and no time limit for your writing. And I want to share now how I got to meet Rosemerry Wahtola Trommer. One of our person whose husband died while on our services in November 2023. Her name is Sheila, and I believe she has joined this program today. Hi, Sheila. Sheila showed me some of Rosemary's poem and said, "Do you know her?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." So I'm curious. So I looked it up. I found a ton of poems and a tons of information about Rosemerry, and I was completely enthralled. I wanted to have her, and here she is. And I am so pleased to have you, Rosemerry, because poetry is one of the ways in which we can explore that tender space. It's one of the ways that is different from a peer support group, from a one-on-one session with a therapist. That is sort of opening to the creativity, allowing yourself to feel that creativity. So I am very, very pleased that you were available today. And I'm going to let you talk now, Rosemerry. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to Astrid, and thank you to all of the volunteers who help with your volunteer hospice. And thank you, everyone who showed up. I'm grateful to be with you today. And I've seen that a lot of people are putting in the chat bar where you're from. I love that. I've seen some really fabulous places go by. And I'm going to invite you now, maybe just for a moment, let's be a little quiet together before we start, just to really arrive. And as we do that, I want to invite you also to perhaps put in the chat bar um, the name of a person who perhaps you're grieving, as today's theme is turning toward our sorrow. If there is a person that you're particularly thinking about, just invoke them. Invoke them by saying their name out loud, perhaps there in your room, and also by putting it in the chat bar. And as you see these names go through, consider saying the name of someone else's beloved too. Peter and Hank, Marcus and Willis, Dave and Eric and Ray, and Ronald and Emmy, Sherry, Michael, baby Riley, Tove and Creighton. I'm going to invite you maybe even just to close your eyes and be still for just a moment. Just notice that you have a body and how it's supported by a chair, which is supported by a floor, supported by the earth, which is supported by gravity and our own sun. Not to make loss beautiful, but to make loss the place where beauty starts, where the heart understands for the first time the nature of its journey. And open your eyes if you haven't yet. Welcome. And maybe lean in to your screen if you have your video on. Go ahead and just lean in and say hello. Hello, other humans who've chosen to be here today. Oh, see, even a little wave. That's nice. So you can smile at each other. Hello, knowing that it is a community of humans who are coming together to explore one of the most profound experiences of our humanity, one that few of us, I think, would choose, and yet how essential it is, how we meet our grief. How do we turn towards sorrow? That little song that I sang was a poem. It's the beginning of a poem by Gregory Orr. And it was one of the poems that helped me when I was first meeting the loss of my son Finn when he died almost 4 years ago now. And then my father, just a few months after that. And these words, I think, are at the exact heart of what I hope we'll be exploring together today, which is, here are the words again, not to make loss beautiful, but to make loss the place where beauty starts, where the heart understands for the first time the nature of its journey. The loss itself not beautiful, but the lessons, the way that our loss humbles us and enlarges us, how it invites us to meet this full spectrum of feelings that can be somewhat overwhelming. We get to honor just how much the heart can hold. We get to honor our common humanity. We get to honor how grief and love are essential to our own becoming. And so in honor of that, today I'm going to do something I've not done before. It's kind of a hybrid of a poetry reading, because I'll be reading lots of poems, my own poems. I'll be singing a couple songs because That's fun. Thanks for clapping for that, Kate Munger, who's also an incredible songstress. And today we're not going to be doing writing together, although maybe just a little bit, and I'll explain how that happens, but we're not going to be doing writing, going off and doing our own writing and coming back. It's more of what I call the thought shop model, where I'm going to offer lots of poems, I'll talk about them, and then I'll offer lots of ideas for you to do your own writing about them, but we're not going to do it today. Every single thing that I share with you today, you are going to get in an email with the recording. So you'll get all of the poems, you'll get links to all of the poems, you'll get, I've written out all of the invitations I have for you to do your own writing. So if you want to write things down today because it helps you, I do that too, but it's all coming to you tomorrow or whenever Astrid is able to get that information to you. So just to know it's all coming to you, and today maybe just as a chance to steep in it, just to receive it. And I guess I want to say, I was thinking as I was putting this together, what does writing really have to offer us? How is it that writing a poem does help us to show up for our grief? And I came up with three main ideas, and I've kind of created the program around them. It helps to enhance our receptivity, which is to say, just being still, listening, opening up. I really feel like poetry is an incredible practice for practicing receptivity. It helps to enhance our curiosity, which is just wonder, what's here? What's true? What else is true? And the third thing, it helps us to enhance our compassion for ourselves and for each other. If you've done any writing at all, my guess is that you have met your self-critic before. They tend to be kind of ferocious sometimes. So when we practice some generous self-talk as we're writing, I feel like that helps us practice generosity with ourselves as we're meeting our own grief. It helps us practice generosity with each other as we're humaning together. I want to say, though, there are a lot of things that writing won't do. Writing won't fix anything. Writing can be super deeply nourishing, but it is not therapy. And also, words don't ever totally touch the depth of our experience, do they? There's pleasure in trying, but they never really do it. So I thought, why not start with where words fail us? And here is an example. If you have been in grief, then my guess is chances are that you've had someone come up to you, probably with the very best of intentions, come up to you and they say something like this: "How are you?" And what are you going to say? So this is a poem about that. And if you, by the way, if you have my books, I'll be reading it entirely, almost entirely from my two books, All the Honey and The Unfolding. If you want to read along, I'll go ahead and tell you the page numbers. Like I say, you'll get all of these poems tomorrow in an email too. So this first one is in All the Honey, page 39, and it's called For When People Ask. I want a word that means okay and not okay. More than that, a word that means devastated and stunned with joy. I want the word that says, I feel it all at once. The heart is not like a songbird, singing only one note at a time. More like a Tuvan throat singer, able to sing both a drone and simultaneously 2 or 3 harmonics high above it. A sound the Tuvans say that gives the impression of wind swirling among rocks. Oh, the heart understands swirl. How the churning of opposite feelings weaves through us like an insistent breeze, leads us wordlessly deeper into ourselves, blesses us with paradox, so we might walk more openly into this world so rife with devastation, this world so ripe with joy. How is it that we can experience these two extremes at the same time, that we can be absolutely devastated and still fall in love with the sound of the wood thrush singing? How does that happen? How is it? I don't know. I just know in my body that it's true. And words don't touch that, do they? They tend to be a little bit more singular. I did find a few words in other languages. English certainly doesn't have a word for it, but I did find a few, and I put them at the end of the book. If you have the book, you can go into the end notes and find some of them. So when I am sure that people have said to you all kinds of things as you're grieving. People with the best of intentions sometimes say things that you can't imagine. Why would you ever say that? And so the first invitation that I would like to give you for your own writing, once again, these will all come to you. You'll get an email that will have all of these invitations in it, but write a poem about how you wish people would meet you. What do you wish they would say or would not say? What question do you wish they would ask or would not ask? Or maybe you prefer they don't speak at all. I know that the people who met me most profoundly in my grief were the ones who were able to just sit with me in silence and be with me. That's really what I needed more than anything, was just someone to be with me and not say anything at all. Another way I suppose that words fail us is I wish, well, I don't know that I do. I remember Gregory Orr wrote a poem about how he felt like he had clear instructions for what to do with loss. And his clear instructions, actually, they were beautiful, sing me awake, this was the line. But I remember reading his poem and thinking, I do not feel like I have clear instructions for how to meet this moment. And so I wrote this poem, I suppose, about exactly that. And if you have all the honey, it's on page 32. The poem is called Meeting Your Death. Because there are no clear instructions, I follow what rises up in me to do. I fall deeper in love with you. I look at old pictures. I don't look at old pictures. I talk about you. I say nothing. I walk, I sit. I lie in the grass and let the earth hold me. I lie on the sidewalk, dissolve into sky. I cry, I don't cry. I ask the world to help me stay open. I ask again, please, please, let me feel it all. I fall deeper in love with the people still living. I fall deeper in love with the world still left. This world with its spring and its war and its mornings. This world with its fruits that ripen and rot and reseed. This world that insists we keep our eyes wide. This world that opens when our eyes are closed. Because there are no clear instructions, I learn to turn toward the love that is here. Though sometimes what is here is what is not. There are infinite ways to do this right. This is the only way. Oh, friends, the poem itself, of course, is full of paradox, and I'm guessing you know this truth too, that what feels right in this moment, I'm crying, does not feel right in the next moment, I'm not crying. I want to move. Nope, I need to sit. Whatever it is, right? However we meet our grief in any given moment, it changes again and again and again and again. And I suppose this poem was an attempt to honor that there are so many ways to do it right, for each of us so different, and for any given one of us so different from moment to moment. So I thought maybe we could just together write a group poem right now, kind of a spontaneous group poem. And the way that we do this is I'm going to offer you an invitation. We're just going to all fill in the one blank together. I just pasted it into the chat bar. Because there are no clear instructions, how are you meeting grief right now? Maybe not this very moment, or maybe this very moment, but what are you doing? Because there are no clear instructions for how to grieve, what do you do? I go for a walk with the dog. I breathe. So if you would type your answer into the chat bar, and then I will read them all together and create kind of a giant group poem. I'll do my best to read everyone's, but I may not get them all. But you'll get this gorgeous idea of how vast it is, how many right ways there are to do this. Because there are no clear instructions, I breathe. I open my heart to divine grace. I keep singing. I find my way moment by moment and show up with whatever is happening. Because there are no clear instructions, I follow my urges and watch the birds. I listen for the next clear thing and push through. I allow myself to feel and watch the sunset sky roll amongst the wildflowers. I withdraw. I allow what is arising in this time of now. I go inside and rest. I love the color orange. Because there are no clear instructions, I breathe. I cry my eyes out until there's no more tears, and in the desert, I just breathe. I go find the birds. I listen to my body. I try to stay in the moment. I walk barefoot in wet grass. Because there are no clear instructions, I sit still and then wander restlessly. I become very quiet and get angry, and I hike, and I find you everywhere. I watch the food channel and sit quietly and hug myself and hug a tree and drink from my tea from my dad's favorite cup. I dance, I hug a tree and work in my garden and discover something next and pay attention to it. My breath feels like crying. I kneel on the garden and let the nasturtiums love me. Because there are no clear instructions, I cry as I walk and move forward. I distract, I meet with my Sangha, I stay present to grace. Oh my goodness. And there were many, many, many more, but look how beautiful that was, friends. Look how incredibly beautiful that was. And I want to point out that it was a list, just a list. And if anybody thinks, oh, Rosemerry, I couldn't possibly write a poem, then I say to you, can you write a list? So many of my favorite poems are just lists. And so this is one that you could do on any given day, right? Meeting your death, this is what I do. And you just make a list of the things that you do today. Because there are no clear instructions, I lean on stronger friends and wander in strange nowness and do the dishes and be in the moment, and I'm true to my heart. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, friends, for that. Also, I don't know that either Astrid or I mentioned this, but I'm going to read poems and sing songs and talk here and offer ideas for about an hour. And then we're going to have, 20, 30 minutes for us just to have a big conversation. So if you have questions, please don't put them in the chat bar yet because they'll get lost, but write them down somewhere so you remember so that when it comes time, when we open it up for a bigger conversation about writing poetry as a way to turn toward grief, you'll have your question right there. And I'm looking forward to that time when we talk to each other about this. So we've covered some of the things that writing cannot do. What can it do? The first thing I mentioned was receptivity. It helps us to be still, to make the time to meet a blank page. I feel like it's my form of meditation, right? Is that I do get very quiet, very still before I start to write. There are many ways to do this, right? By the way, if you've heard that you're supposed to sit and write and you just keep writing and writing and writing and writing, that's one way to do it. But maybe it looks more like what I do, which is I just sit and wait and wait and wait, and I'm still for a nice long time. That's also the right way to do it. Whatever way you're doing it, you're doing it right. Also, just honoring that writing is a courageous thing. When we sit down and we have no idea what's going to happen, anything can happen. And sometimes things that frighten us or open us in strange ways. And I'm just gonna, if you're willing to sit down and be curious about what's here, I honor you because it can take real courage to meet things. Also, just a disclaimer, as you're writing, if you think, nope, not ready to touch that, okay, then you're not. That's not a problem. That's okay. You just say, oh, no, not now, and then move on. Maybe it'll come back and you could do it another time. So the next poem I'm going to share is called Circumventing the Busy Self, and it's in All the Honey on page 8. And it's a poem about, this receptivity, What does it take to make us just stop and feel, friends? I don't know if, like me, you can sometimes put yourself into a state where you're just going to distract and be busy and do anything but sit and feel. And so this is a poem about that. It's called Circumventing the Busy Self. What I need tonight is a chair, the big upholstered kind that sighs when I sit into it, the kind that holds me the way I used to imagine a cloud would hold me, downy and cozy and comfy, secure and filled with light. I need a chair that will make me not want to get up to do whatever important thing I think I must do. Why do I always think I need to do something? Why is it so hard to just sit? So I guess what I really need is a chair and a seatbelt, the kind they have on helicopters with 5 straps that meet in the center, though I think those are self-release. And we all know I will soon feel driven to rise and rush, no matter how cumulonimbus-ish that chair might feel, no matter how insistent the straps. So tonight, what I really need is a soft chair and a 5-strap seatbelt and a giant weighted blanket. Not heavy enough to crush me, but one with enough gravity that being still feels like the only real choice. And if I am still, very still, and not accomplishing anything for a while, then perhaps I will meet this grief I am escaping. Not that I'm trying to escape it on purpose. It's just there's so much important stuff to do. And perhaps, let's say, I've noticed that when I sit, just sit with nothing to read and nothing to do, the grief sits with me. And it asks nothing of me except that I meet it. And in that moment, I remember turning toward grief is what I most want to do. In that moment, there is nothing on any to-do list that could deter me from meeting this grief. Oh, world, I remember. I remember right now. So please, what I need most tonight, it doesn't matter how soft, how threadbare, is a chair. Well, you didn't really think I was going to make it through this without crying some, did you? It's interesting to me, though, that this is the poem that would make me cry. Perhaps because it just is so big to sit and meet our grief. It is so big to show up with and be that receptive. So an invitation for you to do your, oh, just a sweet aside. You know, when I wrote this poem years ago, a woman sent me in the mail a little miniature chair that would belong in a dollhouse. It was just a little overstuffed chair with a floral pattern on it, a little pillow on it, and I put that sweet little chair on my counter, and it was my little reminder to myself to just sit, sweetheart, just sit with your grief, just sit. And then I was able to give it to another friend who, after a couple of years, who she was having a hard time just sitting, so I was able to pass that little chair on to her. So here's a question for you for your own writing, is to wonder, what will it take for you to find the time, energy, willingness to turn toward your sorrow? Maybe begin with, tonight, what I need is, and be curious. What do you really need? What do you just tell yourself you need? What is keeping you from turning towards sorrow? What if you just did it? All right, if you excuse me, I'm going to just put myself on mute for a second and blow my nose.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
Thank you, Astrid. Okay, the next poem that I wanted to share with you about receptivity is I'm thinking about What is here? And I think that writing poems can really help bring us into this moment. What is really here? And what's interesting, of course, about grief is that we're thinking about what's here, but we're also thinking a lot about what isn't here. What isn't here? The person who we're grieving, that's who's not here. That's what's not here. And so sometimes writing a poem is a way to integrate these worlds, the world of the person who we're thinking about, the world that is still here. And so this is a poem that a beautiful way to do this is just to write a letter to the person who we're missing and tell them about what's happening. So this is one that I wrote fairly recently. I wrote it in March, and it's called Letter to My Son Over 3 Years Since He's Gone. You would be jealous, I think, of how your sister is learning trig, speaking Spanish, playing bridge. You'd probably tease her, but really what you'd be thinking is, she is so cool. And she is, sweetheart. She's fun and silly, like you, only like her. We talk about you, of course. Just this weekend, we remembered how once you said, if a 99-pound person ate a 1-pound burger, they would be 1% burger. I wonder what percent of your sister is grief and what percentage love. Tonight, a girl asked her if she had any siblings. She said, yes, a brother. And when the girl asked her how old you were, she told her the truth, that you were 17 when you died. What a terrible gift to learn how to say the hardest things straight. I can't help but think if you are watching her, you too must be in awe of who she is becoming, how we learn to grow from whatever soil we've been given. I do not pretend to know how this works. I only know she is learning to transform ache into beauty, nightmare into dream. I only know I long for her to know love from you, the way a garden feels loved by sun, by rain. How do we let a poem help us reconcile what is here and bring in what isn't here? I think it's one of the most profound things that we can do with a poem. I also think it can be really powerful just to honor what isn't here, to be very present with what is not here. And this next poem is in All the Honey, page 16, and it's called I Want to Listen to Your Absence. I want to listen to your absence, the way I listen to the night, the way the dark somehow invites a deeper listening. I want to hear, for instance, the way silence fills in where your voice has been, or the way the room seems to know itself by the sound of missing footsteps. And in this way, I find you where I cannot find you. I'm thinking of how the night opens up between the calls of the owl and how I listen in that interval, not only with my ears, but with my skin. I want to listen for you with my lungs, as if every breath is attentive to the syllables of grief, of love. I want my heart to angle in to hear what the silence has to say. I don't want to hear what I most want to hear. I want to hear what is really here. I want to listen and learn from the listening. I want to listen into your absence and lean into it the way I lean into the night, something so much larger than me, something familiar and always new, something so present, yet unable to be touched. I want to hear what is true. That kind of receptivity, friends, that listening for what isn't here, I think can be so profound. Again, a way to really show up for our loss and to let the writing be a way to lead us into noticing what is here, what isn't here. The name of that poem again was I Want to Listen to Your Absence. And once again, you'll be getting all of these poems and all the writing invitations in the email. So an invitation for you to do your own writing. Listen into the silence or the sound of this moment and notice what isn't here. What sounds are the one you lost not making? What words are they not saying? I'm going to skip over a couple of these. I think I prepared too many, but you'll still get all of them in the handout. This is the last one I'm going to do around receptivity, and it's just thinking about what is your relationship with grief today. It's in the unfolding on page 39. And I've been so interested, friends. I didn't know this until I started writing so much about grief, that there are really, perhaps we could say, two kinds of grief poems. One of them is the grief poem, like the one that I just read, which is very specifically wondering about the person that we've lost. The other kind of grief poem is writing about our relationship with grief itself, which is very, very different. I didn't know how profoundly essential our relationship with grief is until I did. Um, so this poem, Settling In, is really exploring what is my relationship with grief today. Settling in. The way old friends walk together, that is how it is today with me and grief. We stop and admire the cloudless sky, the flight of a hawk. We keep walking. There isn't much to say, so we're quiet. No bluster, no drama, no striving. Sometimes we catch a glimpse of our shadows and wave. It's not uphill. We're not out of breath. I didn't know walking with grief could be like this. There was a time I remember before. Now, I can't imagine not feeling close. When the walk is done, there's no need to say goodbye. I hold out my hand and we go on together. It's so interesting how our relationship with grief changes, continues to change. So an invitation for you to think about, what is your relationship with grief like today? Is it a lover? Is it an enemy? Is it a friend, a dictator, a puppy? How are you meeting grief today? What is your relationship with grief? So the next thing I want to just explore, we've covered what words can't do. Then we've talked about how language and sitting down to write poems can help with this receptivity piece, opening up. This is how we turn toward our sorrow. The next is how it can enhance our excuse me, how it can enhance our curiosity. I remember my friend Ray, who is a grief counselor here in Telluride, Colorado, said she went to a neurobiology of trauma conference and she was waiting breathlessly, she says, for the world's leading experts to impart the secret to healing the nervous system. And again, she heard the same thing. It's simply presence and being mindful to what is here. And how do we stay mindful to what is here? It is just this willingness to be curious. What's here? Curious again and again. What's here? What's here? So this next poem is called Beginning. It's in All the Honey on page 94. And it came out of a kind of a game that I played with myself for I mean, it sounds almost funny, I suppose, to say that it was a game, but I guess it was. And people often say, you know, when I say that one of my greatest joys about poetry is that it's play, even when it's difficult, even when I'm writing about the most difficult things. And I don't know how this is true, friends, but I promise you that it's true. And it goes back to that original Gregory Orr quote, not to make the loss beautiful, but to make loss the place where beauty starts. And I feel like when I'm really honest, when I'm in this process of being very curious about what is here, what is it like to be with grief today, that there is a pleasure in turning toward it and touching it. And And so I feel like when I say this is the game that I used to play, yes, it was like a game. And it was this. Today, grief is and then I just fill in that blank with really almost anything, right? Today, grief is a window. Today, grief is a chair. I already read you the chair poem. Today, grief is an earthworm or a meadow or a river. I mean, you could fill in endlessly. I promise you could put anything in that blank and it would work out. So the poem I'm about to share with you is called Beginning, and it's in this grief is appearing as an eraser. Beginning. Grief arrives with an eraser, not the cute pink kind at the end of a pencil, more like the big gray kind with the fat felt strips we used on chalkboards, the kind that didn't really get rid of what was there, it just smeared it around until it was unrecognizable, the ghost of what was written still haunting the board. At first, I thought what was being erased was the one who was gone. And then I realized what's being erased is me. Whatever I think I know about love, about life, about death. This erasure is nothing I would have asked for, but now, the lines blurring, what is infinite in me begins to recognize itself. And it's beautiful. This spaciousness I once thought was the end. So this poem, which surprised me, of course, I had no idea where it was going. This poem, I feel like the reason I added it to the section on curiosity is because I would have had no idea what an eraser had to teach me about grief until I sat down and played with this. Oh, um, and the way that I do it, I have this little formula I do for myself. I'll just choose any object. Today, grief is a cabinet, and because I'm looking at a cabinet. So I'll look at the cabinet and I'll think, okay, and I make a list of its properties. Then I make a list of its uses. And then I ask it, what do you have to teach me? And in this way, I always learn something new. And this is, I think, the thrill of writing and the thrill of turning toward poetry as a way to meet grief is that it has this kind of expanding quality in it when we're writing and learning something new about what is it like to be alive right now with this grief. So I thought we'd play another just a little game, and I'm going to write it in the chat bar. Today, grief is, and I'm going to invite you once again to fill in this blank. And what is grief today? You can fill it in any way. You can do it with an object like I did, and now you have a metaphor, but you could also fill it in with uh, like an adjective, right? Today, grief is lonely. However you do it, you can only do it right. And we'll just create another small group poem here, friends. Today, grief is a mute companion. It's a rainbow and a nail. It's a soft wild rose. It's a gift. Today, grief is the wilted flower left in a vase. It's an empty flower vase. It's a hummingbird greeting me. It's an old friend. Today, grief is mystery and emptiness and a wet towel drying in the sun by the pool. It's a cardinal sitting in ivy on the fence. Today, grief is heavy. It's a companion on a walk. It is not to be dismissed. It's responding to a request to sing at a bedside. It's confusing. It's a dull razor. It's an envelope, a deep lake. Today, grief is a grasshopper, a biting dog, a breeze pushing the hammock back and forth, back and forth. Grief is a guest knocking at the door, a baby deer. It's distant and near. It's real and waiting. It's wild thyme blooms. It's not responding. It's a small bell on my desk. Today, grief is a garden crystal, an orangutan. It's being present no matter what. It's being present no matter what. Thank you, friends. Again, I didn't get to them all, but you see, isn't it beautiful? It's just a list, and yet a list of all the possibility, and we get to really see. I think what helped me so much about having this little writing invitation today, grief is that I got to really see how much it changed, how much I changed, that it wasn't this static thing, that it was always moving, that I was growing, that the grief itself and I were growing together, apart, together, apart. So profound how language can lead us into epiphany. I think one of the most important things too that poetry has to offer us is it helps us to reframe a story. And sometimes the stories that we have around grief can be full of blame, uh, can be full of shame, can be full maybe of um, oh, guilt. And so if we are able to see those stories, sometimes when we're writing, we're able to rewrite, reframe those stories and see the same world in a new way. So I'm going to read from All the Honey on page 10. This was, I think, one of the most profound moments of my grief experience. It was 2 nights after my son died. The invitation. 2 nights after he died, all night I heard the same one-line story on repeat. I am the woman whose son took his life. The words felt full of self-pity. They filled me with hopelessness, doom, and then a voice came, a woman's voice, just before dawn, and it gave me a new shade of truth. I am the woman who learns how to love him now that he is gone. It did not change the facts, but it changed everything about how I met the facts. Over 100 days later, over 4 years later, I am still learning what it means to love him. How love is an ocean, a wildfire, a crumb, how commitment to love changes me, it changes everyone. It invites us to bring our best. Love is wine, is trampoline, is an infinite song with a chorus in which I am sung. I am the woman who learns how to love him now that he is gone. May I always be learning how to love, like a cave, like a rough-legged hawk, like a sun. How powerful it was, friends, when I saw the story, that story, right? I'm the woman whose son took his life. It's a true story, but there was so much kind of pity and I don't know, blame and fear in that story. And to change it into, I am the woman who learns how to love him now that he's gone. That's a story I can live into every single day. I can live into that story the whole rest of my life. So it was a profound change. And poetry, metaphor is what allows us to do this. You heard all those metaphors in the poem, right? Love is wine, is trampoline, is a song with an infinite chorus in which I am what is sung. So all the, and Jerry even wrote in there, changing metaphors, right? Isn't it incredible, the power that we have through language, through metaphor, to change the frame, not the facts. The facts stay the same, but we change the way we meet the facts. Poetry lets us do that. The last poem I think that I'll read in this section is one I wrote for my father, and it's in All the Honey, page 50. And it's in this poem, I end up talking to death. I have some things to tell him about taking my dad. There is only the field. On the day my father begins hospice, I watch the pronghorn in the field, marvel as their brown and white striped bodies nearly disappear in the dead grass where they graze. If only I could camouflage my father so death can't find him, so pain would never have discovered him. Tomorrow, my mother and brother and I will gather around him the way a herd might gather, circling him as some antelope circle their young. But death will come, and we, unable to run fast enough, unable to hide, will meet it together. And if I could fight death, would I? Whatever horns I have are more for ritual than attack. When death arrives, I want to bring my softest self. I won't bargain, but I'll tell death it's taking the best of us. the one who worked hardest to survive. When death arrives, I want to ask it, please be gentle. He has suffered so much already. I want to tell death, you don't get all of him. I carry in me. I carry in me his goodness, his courage. While I live, he will always be alive in this field. Okay, little nose blow. So I put this poem in the section on curiosity because I thought, what would I say to death? And what an interesting thing for us to wonder into. If you could tell death something about the person you are grieving, what would you say to them? What instructions would you have for death? What do you think death needs to know about this person? Or if you wouldn't tell death anything, then explore why not. Okay, so we covered what words cannot do. We've covered some of how writing poems helps bring us into receptivity and how it brings us into curiosity, both of these profound ways to show up and turn toward our sorrow. And the last piece here is enhancing compassion. Um, and why? Why would we need to do that? Anyone else out there critical of themselves? I'm looking at your faces, friends. Anybody else can be self-critical um, about how we do anything, right? Especially writing, I've noticed that one of the most beautiful changes in my, in the last few years for me in my life is that I've started to talk so gently to myself, so kindly. I used to call myself, it used to be pretty common for me to be like, oh, you idiot. I don't do that much these days. Almost all the time now, I say, oh, sweetheart. And it started with writing. It started with writing, and in part because I noticed that it was so easy for me to say to my writing students when they were getting stuck or when something would happen, I'd say, oh, sweetheart, that's not a problem. That's just how it is. Well, I started speaking to myself that way as I'm writing and just changing this one piece, this turning toward self-generosity and self-compassion has made all the difference in, well, in everything, but I want to say especially in grief. Just being so gentle with myself, right? Rosemary, are you really going to cry in front of 137 people right now? Yeah, yeah, I am. You know why? Because we're talking about death. And we're talking about the death of my beloved father and son, so of course I'm going to cry. I also had this kind of epiphany some time ago too. I thought, Rosemary, you cry when you read poems, and I say yes, but only when they're the most important things that I could be talking about. And then I thought, what am I going to do? Am I not going to read the poems that are the most important ones? No, no, why would I do that? So I decided from now on, I just cry. I'm just going to show up and cry because we're going to talk about the most important stuff. So this next poem is about finding compassion for ourselves all along the way. And it's in All the Honey, page 14, and it's called Revival. It starts with an epigraph from the incredible Mirabai Starr, who sat with me shortly after Finn died and really just gave me her presence in the most astonishing way. And she also said this, the day your son died, the person you were died too. Revival. Death came to her as a blue sky day, as a feral scream, as an ambulance with no need for its siren. Death came to her saying, ma'am, you don't want to see your son this way. Death knew what it was doing when it erased everything she thought she knew about how to meet a day, when it scraped her of who she had been and left her half barren. It was habit that made her brush her teeth. routine that helped her drive the car, but it was life itself that inspirited her, slipping like starlight into her every dark cell, life itself that whispered to her death-bent heart, "You are not yet done with your loving. You are not yet done with your loving." I think it was incredible in that moment. It was a real voice that said that to me, some voice. Love itself, I don't know. In that moment, to feel as if love was speaking to me. And so my invitation to you is to think about, how did you learn of the loss or impending loss of the one who you're grieving? And write a poem that describes that time. And then wonder, if love itself could speak to you in that moment, what would it say? What would love say to you in that moment, learning about that loss? The next poem is thinking about, what is it like to still be here when the person you're grieving is not here? And this is big, right? How do we keep showing up? How do we keep showing up? Some days it might feel impossible. This poem is called Still Here. If you're reading along, it's in the unfolding on page 23. Still here. After I did not die the first minute, I lived the next minute. More truly, life lived me. More truly, the thick air infused with lake scent and rosemary and late summer insisted I breathe. More that the sun did not let me not see the beloveds who were still here. The thick green leaves of August reminded me life pushes through. There was not a half second I forgot the horror. And still, I did not die. After I lived the first day, I lived the next. Opened the door and drove the car and held close the people I love. Rain fell. And a rainbow bloomed. And the night was sleepless and long and longer. I lived the next week. The next. I lived the next year and the next, more truly. The same life that lives through mushroom, tulip, magpie, worm, eagle, gnat, that same life kept living me. The horror no less real. And love continues to sprout like new trees after fire, slow and indisputable, all gift. What seemed gone is still here. The way light and dark and air are still here. Another day, another year. So perhaps consider writing your own poem by using my first line, "After I did not die the first minute," and tell the story of how you are still here, no matter how long that loss has been. I think I'm going to read one more poem, and then I have a secret treat, which I hope is going to work. We'll see. But the last poem I'm going to read is about finding gratefulness for our bodies and how our bodies carry us through all of this difficult time. How do they do it? My goodness, thank you, bodies. This is from the Unfolding, page 29, and the poem is called Condition. My body, thank you for carrying this ache, for carrying it not like a burden, but like a baby, like a gift, like something that will change you and keep changing you forever. Of course, you would want to shut down, to close, to contract, but I see how grief grows you. Though it shreds your sleep, Though it drops you to the floor, you learn what it is to be human. Through no effort of your own, you are on board for a miracle. It's so big, this invitation to love. Oh, body, you would never ask for this, and yet you meet this grief every moment. You find inner doors you never knew were there, and you swing them open, not to rid yourself of the ache, but to grant it full access, to know the grief completely, to let it rewrite you, remake you, rebirth you, to let it teach you what it means to be alive. Oh, these bodies, friends. So the idea is to write a thank you letter to your body for how it's carried you through a time of sorrow. How does it persist? How has it brought you to this moment? All right, so I have this bright idea. I have a new album, and uh, it has these beautiful videos that my friend Holiday Mathis has been making, and it's accompanied on guitar by my friend Steve Law. And I thought I would show you one of it won't be released for another month, 2 months. Uh, well, the album itself comes out next week, July 18th. In fact, if you're interested, you could join me for the release party, which is going to be, I think, next Thursday, the 18th, whatever the 18th is. If you go to my website, you can find the invitation and the link for that. But I thought I'd show you this little movie, and I'm gonna set it up here, share, and we'll see if I can't make it work. Share. And after this, friends, will open it up for conversation. So if you have any thoughts at all about anything that I've brought up, about turning toward grief through writing, something about any of the poems that I've shared, I would love to hear it from you. So optimize. All right. I'll let the poem speak for itself. Because my heart is where you now dwell, I try to make it beautiful. A spacious place with room enough for bluebirds to migrate, where whole herds of elk can bed down, and with fields so vast they hold every memory of you. Not just the warm-hearted memories, but the hardest ones too. Those I hold up to the soft light of morning, grateful for room enough to walk around them and give them the space they need. Those I hold up to the sharp light of noon and say, yeah, yes, it was like that. I fill my heart with the scent of apple pie and cinnamon, lemon zest, and the river in spring. Sometimes, when I am most vulnerable, there's a floral fragrance of forgiving. I try to keep my heart soft. I try not to clench, not to harden, not to set. I try to create a place where you can rest, where you can stay. It is full of blank books, each one waiting to be filled with stories of how it is with you living here in my heart. This place where you have always lived. This place even death cannot take away. This place death has made more holy, more real. So an idea for writing out of that is to think about how you prepare your own heart as a place for the one you are grieving to live. And what will you put in the rooms of your heart? What songs will you play there? How might you style those rooms? Why does it matter that you do this? And how does it help you to invite this person into your heart? All right, sweet friends. So thank you for the comments in the chat bar. I appreciate that. So once again, just to remind you, every single thing that I have read and then some more things that I didn't share today, will be there for you tomorrow. And also all of these writing invitations that I've offered, they'll all be there with you too. So I want to open it up now just for a conversation about writing poems as a way to meet grief and turn toward our sorrow. Any questions you have about that as a practice, any questions you have or thoughts you have about any of the poems that I shared. And Kate Munger, thanks for jumping right in. I'll just say, just like Kate did, if you can see, she used the reactions bar to put up her hand, and that's how I'm going to know, because there's too many of you for me to see the hands. So I'm going to count on you, please, to use the reactions bar or to put your name or a message into the chat bar. Kate, jump right in. Hi.
Hi, so lovely, beautiful session. I just hope that everyone on the call, like me, gets a poem from you every morning. And it's the first thing, that I do. And by do, I mean I don't let anything else come before reading your poem. It's like it's like an oracle, it's like the gift of truth, and I'm so appreciative of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. You honor me, and I'm so grateful for you receiving them in the spirit that I try to send them in, I really appreciate that. And by the way, I wanted to say about Kate Munger that she is the founder of the Threshold Choirs. If any of you are familiar with that beautiful organization, and if you're not, you may want to just check out Threshold Choirs and find out more about how they bring music to the bedside of people who are dying. And Juliana or Juliana, tell me, if you've told me before, I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Juliana is it. Thank you. I just have, well, first of all, thank you very much. Every time you just get into the right place for me to touch and cry or write, thank you very much. My question is this. I just lost a dearest friend last month. She was 33. And we just have the ceremony, a ceremony we made here for her. But all that you said, remember something that her couple asked me, okay? What to do when I don't want her to be dead? What happened now? In that moment when all your body said, I don't want her to be dead, what to do? Thank you.
Yeah, right, Juliana, thank you. And you're right, of course you don't, right? That feels so real to me. If I were going to meet this with writing, then I would say exactly that. I don't want you to be dead. Writing isn't going to change that, right? That feeling of I don't want you to be dead is still going to be there. And I think that the real gift to me when we turn toward it then, right, is, to say, okay, I don't want this, and this is what is here. And we say them together at the same time. I don't want this, and this is what it is. That's the other thing that comes to mind, and in this way, and we didn't talk really, I can't believe we haven't talked about paradox, but the poems were full of them. I'm thinking of a poem that I didn't share, but it will come to you in the packet. It's called Two Truths. And in this poem, I go back and forth, he is dead. And I give all the reasons why I know he's dead. And then I come in and I say, is it true he's dead? No, he's alive forever. And then I give all the reasons why he's alive forever. How, how does he still live, right? Well, actually, he's dead. Yep, he is. And then I talk more and I just go back and forth. And in this way, I feel like the writing helps us to reconcile what's true. And what's true is that person is not physically here anymore, that the love for them is still here, and we're still here. And so we get to bring all of that in and just we say yes to all of it. Yes to the not wanting it to be true, and yes to it is true. And we just get to say yes to all of it. Thank you. Thank you, Juliana, for bringing that in. I also, yes, Lee, I'm not certain how to say this name, but Byron Katie's work is so brilliant with this. And this is exactly it. This is exactly what Byron Katie does too, is she has this beautiful way of, saying what is true, and then think of every possible way that you could turn it around and notice just how true these other things are also. And I myself have also found this to be so helpful, so helpful. It occurs to me that Kate did that beautiful note about my poems coming every day. If you don't get them and you would like to, there will be a link in the handout at the bottom of the handout to get to the daily poems. So, Allison, thanks for jumping in.
So for you, what are the differences between poetry and prose in this process that you're inviting us to?
Okay, I'll have a couple of thoughts about this. One is maybe it doesn't matter if it's a poem or prose, but I will say this, that I think there is a pretty big difference between writing a poem and writing a journal entry. A journal entry is going to let you write anything and just write, which I think is super important and super helpful. But also, I think a journal entry will allow us to be self-indulgent, right? It'll let us go down, 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 and be angry, 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 angry. A poem actually won't let you do that. And by that, I mean, one thing I know about poems is that the poems that I love the most, the poetic, have a twist in them. They always turn. They begin in one place and they end in another. They must have tension. And if they don't have tension, they will be boring. They'll be boring. They'll sound like journal entries. If they're like happy, happy, everything's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, they sound like Hallmark cards. So I think the thing to do is to notice then what a poem is going to ask us to do is to find the tension. Like I was just saying to Juliana, right? I don't want her to be dead. And she's gone. And it lets it, she's gone and I am still here and the bird is still singing, right? Like there are these ways then by bringing in the tension that it opens up the story. That's one example of how writing a poem would be different than writing a journal entry. A poem often is going to want there to be some kind of way of being in the body, right? How do we bring the senses in? And by doing that, I feel like a poem really is serving us by reminding us we have bodies, which often in our grief we can forget. Even though I wrote that thank you letter in my body, how often have you too, perhaps, in your grief, you forget, you don't remember you're hungry, you don't want to walk, you don't want to do anything, you just want to sit there. You can be very disassociated from your body. So I feel like part of the gift of writing a poem is to bring us again and again into our bodies and also ask and the heart, what does the heart have to say? And what does the mind or the body, the sensory self have to say, and bring them both in. I hope that answered your question. Carol, thank you. And then Susan.
Thank you both so much for this. It's just been wonderful. And Rosemerry, your work has been so helpful. And the writing process that I only started about 5.5 years ago after my husband passed in about 6 years ago. And it just really has opened up so much and helped me to see that sort of paradox that you talk about, where the first line of a Mark Nepo poem comes to mind. Everything is beautiful and I am so sad. You know, I think that's one of the first poems that I wrote to. And it's just, as far as what you say too about the journaling being different from the poem, that's so true too. What I have found, especially recently in trying to write, well, not trying to write poetry, but in letting poetry come, is generally, I journal first, you know, every morning I might journal first, and it's almost like getting out that stuff that needs to come out. And then, like you, I just now sort of sit and look around and say, well, what's here? What is meant to come? And I think there are so many things that we can say. There's no accident that this happened. You know, it's no accident that I finally, after being aware of you for several years, signed up for your poem a day, and I'm finding it so wonderful. It's no accident, I think, that reading your emails led me to one of the other many projects you do, which is Secret Agents of Change, which I signed up for the first time. And I think that finding things that we can turn our energies towards as well, that are uplifting, can help us with our grief as well. And the last thing I'll say about no accidents is, when you mentioned that Kate was involved with the Threshold Choir, that just brought tears to my eyes, because many years ago, a dear friend of mine who moved from here, Massachusetts, out to Bainbridge Island, told me she'd gotten involved with the Threshold Choir, and I sing as well. So she said, I think it'd be, you know, it's a wonderful thing. I'm finding it so wonderful to do. And I used to do hospice volunteering as well. And at that time, I looked here in Massachusetts, and there's nowhere close to me that there was a Threshold Choir. Just a few weeks ago, I looked again, and even though I feel overwhelmed and don't feel ready to take on any new thing, there now is a Threshold Choir a couple of towns away from me. So that when I am ready, you know, that opportunity has presented itself. And so I'm just so grateful for what you do, and what Astrid has done in bringing you to us, and everything that everyone has shared today. And love the singing poems and the poems to music. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Carol. And you bring in something else. I'm so glad. When I say, though, that writing a poem different from writing a journal, I also want to say, well, first of all, that I think journal writing is important. I'm not trying to diss journal writing in any way. Second of all, though, is that, like writing a journal, I do feel like when we're writing poems, one of the most dangerous things is to try to be good. And if you try to write something good, I can promise you that you will not write anything worth reading at all. So please, please, please promise me that you will never write anything good. But promise yourself that every single time you sit down to write, you will endeavor to do your best to write something true. And if you can write something true, then you are always that to me is the real practice. And if you can write something true, first of all, it'll open you up. But then if someone else reads it, they will have that same resonance because they're human too. And then they will say, oh, that's good. But what they mean is, that's true. That's true. This is the way, to really move ourselves and each other is by writing the truth, not to write something good. So please don't ever try to write anything good. Susan.
Thank you, Rosemary. I've done a number of your sessions with Evermore, and when I'm done speaking, I would hope you could. How did I find this? And it says it's number 4 in a series, so I really want to come every time, because as a person who has also lost my son to suicide, and yeah, so I've resonated with what you have to say for a long time, and almost like nothing else. I'm a writer, and I've been writing poetry and studying poetry, and I saw Gregory Orr years ago, and his story is amazing. And I guess what I want to say is, after my boy died, I could not write. I was angry at even the thought of writing. It just made me crazy. And I was just, for me, it's your poem sitting in the chair. I have noticed that in myself, is that my grief response is largely sitting with my hands on the arms of the chairs and or of a chair, and just like to understand fully what happened. And so I do turn toward my grief. I am good to myself, and so I am well, anyway. And as a grief, I'm a psychotherapist, and my part-time work is with other traumatically bereaved parents like myself. And I do it part-time because I know what I need. And I will tell you that what you bring is absolutely the most therapeutic thing ever. And the most therapeutic thing ever is presence and authenticity and leaning in and allowing grief to be what it is. And like nothing else, these sessions and this session this morning, just, I really needed it. So it's been 10 years for me, and it's hard. It's hard. And being real is my grief, my son. I deserve that. And so thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. And I am so glad that you brought in that sometimes we just aren't, writing isn't going to happen, right? Especially at the very beginning, but anytime, which is why I feel like I used to often say, you know, that I have my 4 promises, which are, I will write. It doesn't have to be good, but it just has to be true. I can't know the ending when I start, and I will share. And that first promise, I will write, I actually, I didn't write either. The first 7 weeks after Finn died, I didn't write at all. I needed to give myself space to do absolutely nothing but feel, and open. And then the poems came back. Then the impulse was there again, and I was like, okay, here it is, it's back. So just knowing that not writing is also sometimes part of a writing process, right? So in fact, to be honest, so much of writing is not writing. So to know that if in this moment, if you sit down to meet a page, or you don't even get to a page, but if you just sit and you feel, that's the real practice. A poem is just a byproduct of the real practice, which is showing up. So if you're doing the showing up, that's the real practice. That's the real practice. I'm so grateful that you brought that in, that sometimes it is not the right time to be writing. Thank you for that. And Kimberly.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Rosemary. You're so generous. It's just unbelievable. And I came because I just lost a friend on actually a poet friend on Sunday. And so it was just like the sort of the perfect timing. And what I also realized is that I lost my daughter-in-law a couple of years ago to COVID. And I've written a lot. I've written letters to her. I've written about how it's affected the family. And I'm kind of at a point now in my writing about her, is that I'm watching her children thrive. And I'm also watching them able to do things that they would not be doing if she was still alive. So there's this guilt for feeling that way, for watching them become probably more than they would have become if she was still in her body. She is very much present. We talk about her, we celebrate her, like all the time, but it's just, and that I have not been able to write about yet, and very likely may not share that. But I think it's just important is in my own grieving to really see what's here, and that is what's here, about that particular kind of grief. And the other thing that that I wanted to say, I'm also a science of mind practitioner, so I do a lot of praying with other people. And so some of especially the collective exercises that we did today are so beautiful and they're so helpful. And I'm always looking for things to offer people, who may not be poets, who may not write. And that is just such a beautiful thing to do. And so impactful because it is collective, it's that idea of personal and collective healing. And yeah, so I just wanted to mostly just thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. And thank you so much for bringing this in about that. What's here right now is this guilt. One of the another really sweet practice that's showed up in the last few years for me is to turn toward the thing that I'm struggling with, guilt, right? And just say hello to it, right? Oh, hello, guilt. Or, hello, stuck. Oh, hello, anger. Oh, hello, shame. Oh, hello, sorrow. Whatever. I just turn to it and say hello. And I feel like just even in that little, like you already did such a beautiful job of just saying, this is what's here. Oh, well, hello. Hello, grief. Hello, guilt. And you're so right. We don't have to share everything we write. If it's too tender to share, my goodness, then don't. Then don't. So not everything is to be shared. Thank you for bringing that in too. I think when we're writing, it's so important to feel that sense of infinite possibility. And if the thought of sharing it makes you think, I'm going to not say everything that's true, then the answer is don't share it. Jane, and then Shayla, I hope we'll have time for you. We're getting really close to our time.
And Jane, I trust you're comfortable talking. You had put your question in the chat.
Yeah, it was kind of addressed already, but first of all, I'm really glad I came today. I've only known about Rosemerry for 2 weeks, and I'm a strong believer in that cliche, things happen for a reason, including why I no longer have my daughter. But having Rosemerry show up in my life when she did, and I've really appreciated listening. So I've been a writer for a long, long time. And I can't believe she was able to get back to it after 6 weeks and feel like it was working for her, because I'm a year and a half in and I've been making myself show up to the page. I have a support writing group. Like I put something out there every 2 weeks. And mostly I'm just storytelling. I can't seem to break through to that original illuminated aha moment. And I'm not dealing with guilt and I'm not dealing with anger. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? I think I have a thimble full of regrets about my relationship with my departed daughter. But why am I just stuck? That poem about the chair, that's like all I do is sit and play words with friends. There, it's out there.
But there it is you're sitting and playing words with friends. And that particular chair is just the sitting, right? Is really just sitting with nothing else. Sweet friend. Well, first of all, I did have a writing practice, a daily writing practice for 15 years before that. So I had 15 years of I'm going to sit down and write every day for 15 years before Finn died. I had no idea the gift I'd given myself with that leading up to it. So that writing was very available for me after. But and this longing to be present and this longing to be curious. And if you're writing and what's coming, I think this is it, right? Like if it's coming out as story, if it's coming out as I don't know that it matters at all the way that it's coming out. The thing that matters most though is this sense of this is what's true. This is what's true. And if you can write what's true, I have a thimble full of regrets. if you can write what's true, then I feel like, again, it's a practice for you. I always tell people, be so selfish about it. Be totally selfish about it. Know that the practice is just for you. And when it is just for you, now you can be in service to the writing, and the writing will be in service to you in this very symbiotic way, which I'm guessing you've also experienced. And if sitting down to the page is really hard, yeah, sometimes sitting down to a page is really hard. That's just the truth of it. That no one said it was easy. No one said we were going to love it all the time. No one said it's just going to flow. So all of that is a part of a real practice. Yeah. Thank you, Jane. Thanks for sharing that. Shayla,
Thank
if
you.
it's really quick, we'll jump in, and then I have a song for us to end with.
So the last poem that you played brought back a memory from the first few weeks after I lost my husband. I was just laying on the floor in my living room, and there was a knock at the door. And it was a lady that would just come by occasionally to check on me. And she asked me, "What is that smell?" She said there was this permeating fragrance coming off of the porch. And that poem mentioned the fragrance of forgiveness. And I think maybe that's what she smelled. I couldn't smell anything, but I just wanted to share that and to say thank you. This is my first introduction to your work. I'm very thankful to be here. My writing in those early days was just pieces of scratch paper around my house, and going through those exercises today, I can see how I have a list I can put together and make into one poem. Thank you.
Thank you, Shayla. Thank you. And thanks for bringing in that fragrance and tying that into that last poem. Well, friends, by the way, Speaker Series 4 is Speaker Series 4 with the McClellan Hospice. So the Hospice is McClellan. So it's their series, number 4 in their series. So I'm the 4th speaker for them, not Rosemerry Trommer's 4th series, but Astrid's. And also I'll just say that if you are looking to do other writing things, please do go to my website. The link will be there for you, and you'll see bunches of opportunities. Lots of them are not on the calendar, so just keep checking back at the calendar kind of frequently, and you'll see other things coming up, including every other month a grief writing program that I do through Evermore, which is a glorious bereavement organization. And before I pass it back to Astrid, I'll just invite you to sing another song with me. We'll do it kind of call and response-ishly, a kumbaya style, I suppose. Please do make sure you stay muted. Otherwise, people unmute singing. It always goes to, it's not great on Zoom. But know that we're all singing together. And these are some lines from Mary Oliver that I just put a little tune to from her poem, Snow Geese. So I'll sing, and then I'll leave a little space for you to sing it back. Oh, to love what is lovely, and will not last, and will not last. What a task to ask of anything or anyone, yet it is ours, it is ours. Thank you, friends. Thank you, Astrid. Thanks, everyone, for showing up.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Rosemerry. This was deep, very profound. I think many, many of us were affected. I certainly was. And I can't emphasize enough how powerful your reading is. It's your cadence and your rhythm that really took me to places that I wasn't sure I could get to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We can meet again in a couple of months if you'd like. It will be a different topic. It will be on caregiving. And so log on to our website, volunteerhospice.org, and find out more about us. Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.